The massive Imperial warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their dark hulls blocking out the distant stars. Earth's deep space sensors lit up like Christmas trees as over 300 vessels materialized near Neptune's orbit. Inside Earth Defense Command headquarters, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral James Miller stared at the holographic display with steady eyes. After decades of preparing for this moment, humanity's first contact with alien life had finally arrived. But not in peace. "Status report," Miller ordered, his voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "Sir, we're detecting energy signatures unlike anything we've ever seen. Their smallest ship is the size of our largest carrier. The technology gap is significant." Lieutenant Tom Davis worked frantically at his station, analyzing the incoming data. Miller nodded slowly. Humanity had unified under the Earth Defense Pact 30 years ago, knowing this day would come. They had built up their forces, established colonies on Mars and Luna, and prepared for the worst. But seeing the actual scale of an alien armada was something else entirely. "They're broadcasting." "Sir," Communications Officer Lisa Brown announced. "It's being transmitted on all frequencies, in perfect English." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall humanoid figure with gray skin and elaborate ceremonial armor. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "People of Earth, I am Grand Marshal Wilson of the Imperial Galactic Fleet. For 10,000 years, our empire has brought order and civilization to the galaxy. Your solar system lies within our designated expansion zone. Submit to Imperial rule, and you will be granted the privilege of serving the Empire. Resist, and you will be conquered. You have 6 Earth hours to respond." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in silence. Miller turned to his staff. "Well, looks like they've done their homework, speaking English, using our time measurements. They've been watching us." "Sir, what are our options?" Davis asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Miller walked to the central holographic display, studying the position of the Imperial fleet. "They're giving us 6 hours because they're confident. They think we're primitives who will either surrender or be easily crushed." A slight smile crossed his face. "Let's show them how wrong they are." Over the next hour, Miller coordinated with the Earth Defense Council. The plan they devised was simple but powerful. Humanity would respond not with words, but with history. "Broadcasting package ready, sir," Brown reported. Miller nodded. "Send it." The message Earth transmitted back to the Imperial fleet wasn't a diplomatic response or a declaration of war. Instead, it was a carefully curated video compilation. It began with early human conflicts, spears and shields, armies clashing on ancient battlefields. Then it progressed through history, the invention of gunpowder, the mechanization of warfare, the development of aircraft and tanks. The video showed humans fighting in every environment: frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles, and urban ruins. It displayed guerrilla warfare, resistance movements, and the incredible adaptability of human fighters. It concluded with footage of nuclear tests, orbital defense platforms, and the latest quantum weaponry. The final frame was simple text: "We have spent our entire history fighting ourselves. Now you want us to fight you. We suggest you run." In the Imperial flagship, Grand Marshal Wilson watched the transmission with growing unease. His intelligence reports had labeled Earth as a developing civilization, barely worth notice. But watching their history of warfare, he felt the first stirrings of doubt. "Sir," his deputy commander spoke up, "their military technology appears primitive compared to ours, but their combat diversity and tactical adaptability are concerning." Wilson dismissed the warning with a wave of his hand. "They're showing us recordings of them, killing each other with primitive weapons. The Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. These humans are nothing special." Back on Earth, Miller watched as the Imperial fleet began moving into attack formation. They had made their choice. "All stations, battle stations," he ordered. "Activate the planetary shield grid. Begin evacuation protocols for civilian populations. Launch our stealth satellites." He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. "They think we're primitive. They think we'll be easy to conquer. Let's show them why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us." The first shots of humanity's first interstellar war were about to be fired. The Empire was about to learn why they should have heeded the warning to run. The Imperial fleet moved with mechanical precision, spreading out in a textbook invasion formation. On Earth's monitors, their ships looked like a swarm of metallic locusts, beautiful and terrifying. Admiral Miller watched as Earth's warning message was played on repeat across all channels. The video compilation had been carefully crafted, showing not just humanity's capacity for violence, but their incredible ability to adapt and survive. "They're still advancing," Lieutenant Davis reported from his station. "No sign they're taking our warning seriously." Miller nodded grimly. "Send the second package." This time, the transmission was different. It showed modern warfare in its full brutality. Urban combat footage from 100 different conflicts filled the Imperial screens. Soldiers fighting house to house, street by street. Booby traps, improvised explosives, and the desperate ingenuity of humans fighting against superior forces. "Look at their formations," Miller pointed out to his staff. "Perfect spacing. Traditional military doctrine. They fight like an empire that's never faced real resistance." Inside the Imperial flagship, Grand Marshal Wilson stood with his commanders, watching Earth's transmissions with growing irritation. "More primitive recordings," he scoffed. "They think showing us their internal conflicts will frighten the Empire. We have technologies they can't even comprehend." His tactical officer, a veteran of countless conquests, wasn't so sure. "Sir, observe their combat methods. No other species we've encountered fights like this. Most civilizations develop organized warfare, clear battle lines. These humans, they're chaos incarnate." Wilson dismissed the concern. "Chaos cannot stand against order. That is the foundation of the Empire." Earth's third transmission arrived. This time, it showed something different. Humanity's recovery after disasters. Cities rebuilt after nuclear war simulations. Underground bunkers that could house millions. Survival training that every human child learned in school. The message was clear. Even if the Empire struck hard, humanity would survive. And they would fight back. "Sir," Davis called out in Earth's command center, "we're detecting energy buildups in their fleet. They're preparing weapon systems." Miller straightened his uniform. "So be it. Initiate Operation Dark Forest." Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms came online. For decades, humanity had prepared for this moment, placing stealth satellites and automated defense systems throughout their territory. While the Empire saw only a single inhabited planet, they were actually facing a carefully prepared battlefield. "They really should have studied their history," Miller mused. "Every empire in human history fell for the same reason. They underestimated those they thought inferior." The Imperial fleet continued its advance, confident in their superior technology and numbers. Their sensors showed Earth's primitive defenses, a handful of space stations, and a small fleet of warships. What they couldn't see were the thousands of automated drones waiting in the asteroid belt, the nuclear mines scattered through the approach vectors, and the quantum entanglement disruptors ready to throw their sophisticated navigation systems into chaos. "Final warning prepared, sir," Communications Officer Brown announced. Miller gave the order. "Send it." The last transmission was the shortest. It showed scenes from Earth's entertainment, movies and games depicting humanity fighting alien invasions. Hundreds of stories where humanity, despite being outgunned and outnumbered, fought back against impossible odds and won. "They think it's all fiction," Miller said softly. "They don't understand that we've been preparing for them for generations. Every alien invasion movie, every science fiction story. They were training tools, teaching humanity to think about how to fight superior forces." The Imperial fleet was now passing Mars orbit. On the command deck of his flagship, Grand Marshal Wilson prepared to launch the first strike that would bring these upstart humans to heel. "Such primitive creatures," he said to his bridge crew. "They think their violent history makes them special. They'll learn that the Empire's technology makes their experience meaningless." Back on Earth, Miller gave a small smile as he watched the Imperial fleet move exactly where they wanted them. "All units," he broadcast to Earth's defenders, "remember your training. Remember everything we've learned from our history. Today, we teach the Empire why they should have taken our warning seriously." The real battle was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why they should have run when they had the chance. The Imperial fleet launched their first attack on Mars colony, expecting an easy victory. Their massive ships descended through the thin Martian atmosphere, weapons charged and ready to demonstrate the Empire's overwhelming power. What they didn't expect was for the entire surface of the colony to vanish. Holographic projections, Miller explained to his staff on Earth, watching the battle unfold. "The real Mars colony has been underground for months. Let them waste their first strike on empty buildings." The Imperial forces quickly realized they'd been firing at nothing but sophisticated decoys. Before they could regroup, the real attack began. From hidden bunkers beneath Mars' red soil, electromagnetic pulse weapons fired upward. The pulses were based on stolen Imperial technology, modified by human engineers to target specific frequencies used in Imperial shields. "Impossible," Grand Marshal Wilson shouted as reports of shield failures came in. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." But the humans weren't fighting with just technology. As Imperial ships lost power, swarms of small automated drones emerged from concealed silos. These weren't sophisticated machines. They were simple, hardened rockets loaded with high explosives and basic guidance systems. "Sometimes the old ways work best," Miller commented as he watched hundreds of these crude but effective weapons overwhelm the Imperial point defense systems. The Imperial fleet had never faced an enemy that combined primitive and advanced technology so effectively. Their complex shield systems were designed to stop energy weapons and plasma torpedoes, not simple kinetic projectiles and shake charges. 3 Imperial cruisers fell in the first 10 minutes, their hulls breached by weapons they considered too primitive to defend against. "Status report," Wilson demanded, his confidence shaken for the first time. "Sir, we've lost contact with Ground Force Alpha," his tactical officer reported. "They landed to secure the colony, but—" He paused, checking his readings. "Sir, the humans were waiting in tunnels. They're using mining equipment as weapons." Indeed, the human colonists had turned their industrial mining lasers into devastating anti-armor weapons. Imperial troops, used to fighting in open battlefields, found themselves in a maze of tunnels where their advanced sensors were useless. "Pull back the ground forces," Wilson ordered. "We'll destroy the entire colony from orbit." But as the Imperial ships positioned themselves for orbital bombardment, they discovered another surprise. The humans had placed mass drivers in Mars' smaller moons, Phobos and Deimos. These electromagnetic catapults began launching asteroids at the Imperial fleet. "Basic physics," Miller explained to his officers. "No matter how advanced their shields are, they can't ignore the kinetic energy of a rock moving at orbital velocity." The Imperial fleet scattered, their perfect formation broken. They had trained for combat against enemies who fought like them, with energy weapons, shields, and proper military doctrine. Instead, they faced an enemy that turned mining tools into weapons and used celestial bodies as ammunition. "This is unprecedented," Wilson's second-in-command admitted. "No species has ever resisted our first strike. They're using tactics we've never encountered." Wilson gripped his command chair tightly. "They're savages, using rocks as weapons. Industrial equipment. This isn't proper warfare." But proper or not, it was working. The battle for Mars colony became the Empire's first major defeat in a millennium. As they retreated to regroup, they left behind 7 destroyed ships and thousands of confused troops trapped in Mars tunnel networks. On Earth, Miller received the casualty reports. The humans had lost people too, but far fewer than expected. Their preparation and unconventional tactics had paid off. "Send word to all colonies," he ordered. The Mars defense plan worked. "Implement similar strategies everywhere. The Empire won't fall for the same tricks twice, but that's fine." He smiled grimly. "We have plenty more tricks." In his flagship, Wilson stared at the battle recordings, trying to understand how his superior force had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "maybe we should have taken their warning more seriously." Wilson didn't respond. He was beginning to realize that this war would be unlike any the Empire had fought before. The humans didn't just fight. They fought dirty, they fought smart, and most worryingly, they fought like they had nothing to lose. The Battle of Mars was over, but the war was just beginning. After the Mars victory, humanity didn't wait for the Empire's next move. Captain Robert Thompson led Earth's first offensive strike, commanding a fleet of small, agile ships that looked more like space debris than military vessels. "Remember," Thompson told his crew, "we're not trying to outgun them. We're going to outthink them." His ships, officially designated as Ghost Fleet, utilized technology that made them appear as space junk on Imperial scanners. It was a trick borrowed from Earth's naval history, disguising warships as harmless civilian vessels. The Imperial fleet, still recovering from their Mars defeat, had retreated to one of their forward bases near Jupiter's orbit. They were following standard Imperial doctrine: regroup, repair, and prepare for a massive counterattack. "They're so predictable," Thompson remarked, watching the Imperial ships through his command screen. "Always by the book, always following protocol." His fleet struck at night, or what passed for night in space. The Empire's massive ships were arranged in perfect defensive formations, their sensors scanning for threats. But they weren't looking for threats that appeared to be chunks of metal and rock. "All ships, execute Operation Trojan," Thompson ordered. The Ghost Fleet ships suddenly changed course, their outer shells breaking away to reveal weapon systems. Before the Imperial base could react, Thompson's forces were inside their defense perimeter. "Impossible," an Imperial commander shouted as alarms blared. Their ships were debris. "We scanned them." But the humans had learned from thousands of years of warfare that deception was often more powerful than direct force. As the Imperial ships tried to bring their weapons to bear, they found themselves shooting at each other, confused by the small human vessels darting between them. "Target their command and control systems," Thompson ordered. "Don't bother with their armor. Hit their sensors, their communications, their ability to coordinate." The Ghost Fleet struck with surgical precision. They didn't need to destroy the Imperial ships. They just needed to blind them. Electronic warfare systems, developed in secret by Earth's best engineers, created false sensor readings and scrambled Imperial communications. In the chaos, Thompson's forces targeted a specific ship, a smaller, faster vessel on the edge of the Imperial formation. "That's their new prototype," Thompson told his crew. "Intel says it's their most advanced ship. Let's take it." Using the confusion they'd created, 3 Ghost Fleet ships surrounded the prototype. While the Imperial fleet was still trying to organize a response, human boarding teams cut their way into the vessel. The Imperial crew, trained for ship-to-ship combat, found themselves fighting in their own corridors against humans using tactics learned from centuries of naval boarding actions. The humans didn't fight fair. They used smoke grenades, flashbangs, and even old-fashioned tear gas. These primitives, the Imperial ship's captain raged as his crew fell back. "They're using chemical weapons." But to the humans, anything that worked was fair game. Within 20 minutes, they had control of the prototype ship. "Ghost Fleet, mission accomplished," Thompson broadcast. "Begin withdrawal." As quickly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished, taking with them not just the captured prototype, but also valuable data stolen from Imperial computers. They left behind a confused and disorganized Imperial fleet, their perfect formations now in shambles. Back at Earth Defense Command, Admiral Miller received Thompson's report with satisfaction. "How many ships did we lose?" he asked. "2, sir," came the response. "But we rescued most of the crews." "And the captured prototype?" "Sir, its technology will advance our research by decades." Miller nodded. The loss of 2 ships was painful, but the gain was worth it. Humanity didn't have to match the Empire's technology. They just had to adapt it, improve it, and use it in ways the Empire never imagined. In his flagship, Grand Marshal Wilson received the news of this latest defeat with growing concern. The humans didn't fight like any species the Empire had encountered. They didn't try to match Imperial strength. Instead, they found weaknesses, exploited them, and disappeared before the Empire could respond. "Sir," his tactical officer ventured, "perhaps we should reconsider our strategy. These humans, they're not fighting a conventional war." Wilson stared at the battle recordings, watching how the primitive human ships had made his mighty fleet look foolish. "No," he agreed quietly. "This isn't conventional at all, and that's what makes them so dangerous." The resistance was growing stronger, and the Empire was learning a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity's capacity for warfare. In a heavily guarded facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Engineer Mary Parker stood before the captured Imperial prototype ship. Her team had spent weeks studying its advanced technology, but they weren't just trying to understand it. They were trying to improve it. "Look at how they designed this," she told her colleagues, pointing to the ship's power core. "It's perfect, efficient, and completely predictable. That's their weakness." While the Empire built technology to be perfect, humans had learned to build things to be adaptable. Parker's team began modifying the Imperial systems, combining them with human ingenuity in ways the Empire never imagined. "They use quantum shielding," Parker explained to Admiral Miller during his inspection. "But they never thought to make it modulate randomly. They never had to fight enemies who could adapt to their patterns." The first hybrid warship rolled out of Earth's secret shipyards a month later. From the outside, it looked like an Imperial vessel. Inside, it was something entirely new, a combination of Imperial technology and human unpredictability. "Test firing in 3, 2, 1, Parker announced. The hybrid ship's weapons came to life. They fired Imperial energy beams, but with human modifications. The beams pulsed irregularly, changing frequency in patterns that Imperial shields weren't designed to stop. "Beautiful," Miller said, watching the test target disintegrate. "How soon can we outfit our fleet with these modifications?" "We've already started, sir," Parker replied. "And there's more. We've figured out how their faster-than-light drives work. But we're not just copying them. We're making them better." In space, the war had reached a turning point. Imperial ships found themselves facing enemies that used their own technology against them, but in ways they'd never seen before. Human ships would appear out of hyperspace at impossible angles, their modified drives allowing maneuvers that Imperial doctrine claimed were impossible. On the Imperial capital world, reports of these new human capabilities caused panic among the military leadership. "They've taken our technology and corrupted it," one Imperial commander protested during an emergency meeting. "This isn't how these systems are meant to be used." Grand Marshal Wilson watched recordings of the latest battles with growing dread. The humans weren't just using Imperial technology. They were evolving it, changing it, making it do things that violated centuries of Imperial engineering principles. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've detected similar modifications spreading through our conquered territories. Other species are learning from the humans, adapting their methods." It was humanity's greatest weapon, not their ability to fight, but their ability to teach others to resist. Across the Empire, subjugated species began modifying their own technology, inspired by Earth's example. Back in her underwater lab, Parker stood before her latest creation. It looked like an ordinary Imperial communication array, but she had modified it to broadcast on frequencies that the Empire considered impossible to use. "Send the message," Miller ordered. Parker's modified array activated, broadcasting across the Empire's own network. But instead of military commands, it sent something more powerful: information. Details about how to modify Imperial technology, how to fight back, how to resist. The Empire built everything to be perfect, Parker explained to her team. But perfect systems are predictable systems, and predictable systems can be beaten. The response was immediate. Across Imperial space, their perfectly ordered communications network descended into chaos as modified transmitters came online. The Empire couldn't shut them down because they weren't fighting against their technology. They were fighting against their technology transformed by human innovation. Wilson received reports of uprising on dozens of worlds. Imperial ships were being captured and modified. Imperial weapons were being turned against their users. The perfect order of the Empire was being undone by human chaos. "We have to adapt," Wilson finally admitted to his command staff. "For the first time in Imperial history, we have to change our ways, or we will lose everything." But it was too late. The Empire had spent thousands of years perfecting their technology and tactics. They didn't know how to adapt, how to change, how to think differently. Humanity had not just turned the tide of the war. They had shown the galaxy that the perfect order of the Empire was its greatest weakness. The once mighty Empire was about to learn that evolution, not perfection, was the key to survival. The Imperial capital world of Nova Prime shook with explosions as centuries of perfect order crumbled. The massive Imperial Palace, once a symbol of unshakable power, now burned with fires that could be seen from orbit. Inside the palace's command center, Grand Marshal Wilson watched his empire collapse. Not from a massive human assault, but from something far more dangerous: ideas. "Another sector has declared independence," his communications officer reported, voice trembling. "They're using modified Imperial technology, just like the humans taught them." The rebellion wasn't just spreading, it was evolving. Each world that broke away from the Empire added its own innovations to humanity's modifications. Species that had been conquered centuries ago remembered what freedom felt like. Admiral Miller, coordinating Earth's forces from his flagship, Defiance, watched the Empire's collapse with grim satisfaction. "Sometimes the best way to win a war isn't to destroy your enemy," he told his crew. "It's to show others they can resist." The human fleet hung back at the edges of Imperial space, not as conquerors but as teachers. They shared their knowledge freely with any world that wanted to break free. Earth ships became mobile training centers, showing others how to modify their technology and fight back. "Sir," Wilson's tactical officer shouted, "the orbital defense grid, it's turning against us." The Empire's own weapons, perfect in their design but predictable in their programming, had been modified by rebels using human techniques. Defensive platforms that had protected Nova Prime for centuries now turned their weapons toward the surface. Wilson stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How? How did they corrupt our perfect systems? But it wasn't corruption, it was evolution. The humans hadn't just taught others to fight, they taught them to think differently. Imperial engineers, trained from birth to maintain perfection, began to see the beauty in adaptation and change. On 1,000 worlds, Imperial governors found themselves facing populations that no longer feared their perfect order. Mining colonies turned their equipment into weapons, just as Mars had done. Agricultural worlds discovered their atmospheric processors could be modified into defensive shields. "This isn't how war is supposed to work." Wilson raged as another sector fell. "They're supposed to fight us directly, not spread these ideas." But humanity had learned long ago that the most powerful weapon wasn't a gun or a bomb. It was knowledge. Every world that broke free became a new center of innovation, combining their own technology with human modifications in ways no one had ever imagined. The Imperial military, trained to fight traditional battles, found themselves facing enemies that adapted faster than they could respond. Ships they disabled one day would return the next with new modifications. Tactics that worked in the morning failed by evening as rebels learned and evolved their strategies. Miller received the reports with quiet pride. We didn't need to destroy the Empire, he explained to his officers. We just needed to show others that it wasn't invincible. The final blow came not from Earth's fleet, but from within the Empire itself. Imperial citizens, seeing the freedom and innovation spreading across the galaxy, began questioning their own society's rigid perfection. "Sir," Wilson's last loyal commander reported, "the Palace Guard. They're laying down their weapons. They're saying they want to learn the human way." Wilson stood in his command center, watching as the perfect order he had served his entire life dissolved into beautiful chaos. The humans hadn't just defeated the Empire, they had transformed it. "Perhaps," he said quietly, looking at recordings of human ships teaching former Imperial worlds how to modify their technology, "perfection isn't the highest goal after all." As the sun set on Nova Prime, the Empire's capital world saw something it hadn't witnessed in thousands of years: change. The rigid patterns of Imperial life gave way to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new possibilities. Miller sent one final message to Earth: the Empire hasn't fallen. It's evolved. And maybe that's the greatest victory we could have achieved. The perfect Empire was gone, but in its place, something new was being born. A galaxy that understood that strength didn't come from perfection, but from the ability to adapt, to change, and to grow. 3 years after the Empire's transformation, the galaxy looked very different. The rigid lines of Imperial architecture now blended with diverse styles from 1,000 worlds. On Nova Prime, the former Imperial Palace had become the Galactic Council of Free Worlds. Admiral Miller, now serving as Earth's representative to the Council, walked through halls that once echoed with Imperial commands. Now they buzzed with conversations in hundreds of languages as representatives from former Imperial worlds worked together to build something new. "It's still hard to believe," said the former Grand Marshal Wilson, who now served as a senior advisor to the Council. "We spent millennia believing that perfect order was the only way forward. Your people showed us a different path." The transformation hadn't been easy. Some Imperial loyalists had fought to the end, unable to accept a galaxy without absolute order. But most had embraced change once they saw its potential. Engineer Mary Parker's Hybrid Technology Center had become the galaxy's premier research facility. Species from across known space came to learn not just how to modify technology, but how to think differently about problems. The key was never about having the most advanced technology, Parker explained to a group of visiting scientists. It was about understanding that there's always room for improvement, always a new way to look at old problems. The former Empire's rigid military doctrine had given way to something more flexible. The new Galactic Defense Force combined the best aspects of Imperial precision with human adaptability. Ships that once moved in perfect formation now trained to react independently, to think creatively. "Look at that," Miller said, pointing out the Council chamber's window at a passing patrol. Imperial ships flew alongside vessels of every design imaginable, each modified and improved in unique ways. The greatest change wasn't in technology or military strength, but in how species interacted. The Empire had enforced peace through power. The new Galactic Council maintained it through cooperation and mutual respect. "You know what the most surprising thing is?" Wilson said to Miller during a council session break. "We thought teaching others our perfect ways would make them strong. Instead, we learned that strength comes from sharing knowledge and learning from each other." Earth had become a key member of the galactic community, but not its ruler. Instead, humanity's greatest contribution was teaching others how to teach themselves. Every world that had once been under Imperial control now had the freedom to develop in its own way. "We're seeing innovations we never dreamed possible," Parker reported during a technology summit. "Species are combining their traditional knowledge with modified Imperial tech in ways that are revolutionizing everything from medicine to space travel." The warning that had started it all, "Run," had become something of a galactic inside joke. It was now understood not as a threat, but as advice to anyone who thought they could force others into their idea of perfection. The Empire never had war with humans before. Miller mused during the third anniversary celebration of the transformation. We warned them to run not because we wanted to destroy them, but because we knew we would change them. And change can be scarier than destruction. As the celebration continued around them, Wilson turned to Miller with a curious expression. "Do you think you knew this would happen when you sent that first warning?" Miller smiled. "We hoped. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to adapt and help others adapt too. We didn't want to defeat the Empire. We wanted to help it evolve." The new Galactic Society wasn't perfect. It had problems and challenges like any living thing. But that was exactly the point. It was living, growing, changing. The rigid perfection of the Empire had given way to something more chaotic, but infinitely more vibrant. To the future, Miller raised his glass in a toast, joined by representatives from hundreds of worlds. Not because it's perfect, but because it's always changing. As the celebration continued, ships of all designs passed overhead, their modified technologies a testament to what could be achieved when perfection gave way to possibility. The galaxy had learned that the most powerful force wasn't perfect order. It was the endless capacity for growth and change that humans had taught them to embrace. The Empire was gone, but something far better had taken its place. A galaxy had understood that true strength came not from enforcing order, but from embracing evolution.